Let's kick off the session. Welcome everybody to the Sunbird RC webinar series. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, based on where you are. So we're quite excited to actually host you from the EkStep Foundation and use this opportunity to actually delve and spend some time on an emerging technology segment, verifiable credentials and registries, as well as a very popularly used digital public good, which is completely open source, called Sunbird RC. And through this session, we intend to actually cover the various possibilities and the emerging landscape of what governments, policymakers, as well as market participants could actually do using verifiable credentials as a technology area along with reliable registries. What we have as part of the agenda today is an interesting lineup. So I'll quickly take a shot at highlighting the agenda for today. So let me introduce myself first. I'm actually Rajesh Menon. I'll be moderating the session today and hosting this webinar. I'm actually, I lead the growth and strategy segment at another not-for-profit foundation based in India called the Beacon Foundation. I'm also a core volunteer of the Sunbird Digital Public Good efforts, and I'm quite excited to actually be given the opportunity of laying the agenda for this webinar as part of an interesting set of sessions coming ahead. So in terms of the agenda today, what we will have today is I'll be setting the context right now. We have an interesting line of speakers as part of this session, as you would have probably seen in the invites sent out. We have the question and answer panel actually open for all chat participants. Given the paucity of time, we probably may not have necessarily enough time spent for all audience questions to be answered during the session by the panelists themselves. So I would encourage and request all of you to feel free and paste your questions in the Q&A dialogue. The Sunbird team would be responding to all of those questions as and when they're posted. And if we actually do have time towards the end, we will probably pick up a couple of questions and post it to our speakers, Pramod and Daniel. The second agenda that will be focused today is a segment on the role of registries and verifiable credentials in augmenting digital transformation around the world. And as part of this segment, we will also be introducing the digital public good Sunbird RC, the role, the background, as well as some of the footprint of Sunbird RC as it is being used in multiple digitization efforts in multiple sectors. So that session will be taken up by Dr. Pramod Verma. The third segment, we will have a dialogue between Pramod and Daniel on where we see the synergies between credentials and open wallets as another emerging and exciting area to clearly watch out for. And finally, towards the end, once we have each of the above segments completed, we will, time permitting, take up a couple of audience questions. We will also encourage everybody to look at some of the Sunbird resources that are publicly available. We will be sharing information and links to all of those Sunbird resources, as well as some of the other webinars that we have planned as part of the series. So without further ado, I will move on to the first segment. This segment will be delivered by Dr. Pramod Verma. As most of you joining this call would know, Pramod does not need any detailed introduction as such. A lot of us actually know him as one of the leading digital pioneers of digital government efforts, as well as open source DPG work in many sectors. Pramod is the CTO for the EkStep Foundation that has built and managed Sunbird RC as a digital public good. He's also the co-founder of another digital public good called Beacon, as well as he has held and continues to hold the chief architect role at under the Aadhaar and India's stack efforts that the government of India has been working on for the last decade or so. So with that, I would request Pramod to actually take up the session going forward and handing over the controls to you, Pramod.
Thank you, Rajesh. Pleasure to be here. Good morning, good evening, very early morning. I know Daniel is actually, thank you, Daniel, as well for joining. It's very early morning for you. And I think this is a series of discussions, and we wanted to kick off with one of the most critical discussions regarding electronic registries and verifiable credentials. I will cover that. It's an extremely important topic in the rapidly digitized world that is getting digitized, especially large digitization effort, where from a public good perspective, we want to make sure that people are empowered, SMEs are empowered through their establishing trust in one sense. So that's the fundamentals of it. And Aadhaar was the beginning of that registry effort. Frankly speaking, Aadhaar is one of the largest registries, electronic registries of people, registries of residents in the country, right, in India. And that sort of set the trend for many such efforts to happen. And today we are talking about what we have built in open source world that allows any country or anybody to any institution to set up registries and issue credentials to people. Rajesh, I'm supposed to share the deck myself, or what do I do?
Yes, Pramod.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Makes it easier for me to navigate. Sorry about that. I just need to load it up. Just let me know, Rajesh, whether you are able to see that.
Yeah. Yes, I can see the slides.
Okay. Yeah. So let me get started. If you fundamentally look at the digitization effort, the large-scale digitization of the economy itself, society as a whole, you will see 3 key pillars. And this is very important for us to understand the key pillars and how each of those pillars are being built, especially, many countries are building their digital public infrastructure, or the word DPI, which is popularly known that way. And many of them is powered by open source digital public goods, or the DPGs, as you know. And these 3 pillars start from identity. And identity doesn't mean Aadhaar like identity alone. Aadhaar is a foundational identity, which sort of everyone gets it. But there are doctor identities, teacher identities. If you're a teacher, how do you know? Employee identities. Many of you work in a company and you get an identity card, right, from employees. And many functional identities, they are known as functional identities. But ID is a digital ID, is absolutely essential in establishing who you are and who you are at various levels, right? Are you a resident of India, for example? And that can be answered through Aadhaar authentication, verifiability of Aadhaar. Are you a taxpayer in the country? That comes from a taxpayer ID. That are you a voter in the country? That comes from a voter identification system. All these are identity to avail benefit. What do you do? Identities, identity power allows people, not only people. There are identities for establishment today. If you have a company, there's company ID. Then you register a company in the country, you get a company identity. And the real question is that digital? Is that verifiable? So while we are moving from a world of paper that almost has no verifiability, you have lots of paper like registration, company registration paper, and so on. We are moving towards a world systematically, slowly, we are moving towards a world where identities are digital native. Digital identities, identity for people, identity for things, identity, for example, your car can have an identity, right? Your vehicles can have identity and so on. And identity for things and identity for entities. And these will be natively digital. And that's essential in establishing trust in anything we do. You walk into airport, they ask for identity. You travel, you do anything, you walk into a hospital, they need your ID so that they can issue your health documents and so on. Identity becomes very much a root of trust in any engagement. So thinking that as an independent digital instrument is very key. And Aadhaar was just one beginning of that. We have done, in India, we have many other identities as well, you see, and many other countries have various types of identities issued, people, entities, and things, fundamentally. The question we are asking is, are they digital native? Are they issued digitally? Are they verifiable digitally? And do they allow other systems to leverage that instead of starting from all over again? I walk into a bank and my ID can be verified instantly by the bank so that a bank can open a bank account, provision a bank account almost instantly without having to verify your identity and background, everything else all over again. So the idea of digitization is to make sure the next set of layers can actually leverage it. And the second aspect of the digital pillar is what I have, not who I am, what I have. This means money, property records, academic certificates, skill certificates, and many other things that you carry typically in paper form, which almost diminishes the value of it or verifiability of that almost instantly. Now we are hoping, all of us, as we see the digitization trend, we want to see these assets, verifiability of these assets embedded natively in some sort of a credential form. That means you are issued some sort of a credential that allows vaccination certificate. Indians will know, and some of the other folks who are maybe not Americans, but definitely many other countries have issued digital COVID certificates, verifiable credentials, to prove that you are actually vaccinated, right? Not a handwritten or a printed paper that has no verifiability. So it's important that the asset layer is also digitized and made verifiable so that the next set of layers, when you walk into a college for admission, how do they even know that you have the prerequisites, that you have done your undergrad before you go to a graduation degree and so on? Today it's quite broken. Frankly speaking, it's painful, broken, and low trust environment. So this creates a huge issue for blue collar workers, SMEs, and sort of the bottom of the pyramid, because their ability to prove who they are and what they have becomes almost impossible. And that's not a good situation to be in. So it's important that we also digitize assets in a verifiable fashion. Okay. Doesn't mean you digitize property. Property exists, for example. That's a physical, but you have to create a digital credential on top of that that proves that you are the owner of the property. What is the value of that property? What is the area of that property? Where's the location of that property? So that the next, when you walk into a bank for a loan, for example, they can instantly verify the authenticity of what you have. That's key. And then comes, only if you have who you are and what I have in a trustworthy manner, you can participate in transactions in this world. Today, participating in transactions like buying a house, getting a job, joining a college, looking for an opportunity, or going into to getting a care, access to care in the health scenario, or access to commerce transactions and commerce opportunity. All these are actually high friction, low trust, and high cost. It's important to understand those fundamental deficiency today, because the underlying assets, data, credentials, certificates are all paper. Underlying ID is all paper. That creates huge friction in terms of high cost, low trust. And that fundamentally creates issues for most people in the society. to access transactions in an equitable manner. So it's very important that we underlying layers, the ID layer, the who I am layer and what I have layer gets digitized. And that's where registries and credentials play a part. So it is very important that we understand the foundations. Why do we do what we do? Okay, in terms of uplifting the society as a whole. And if you look at today, you will see so much digitization effort. But typically what happens, the digitization gets done in the country, and the digitization, each system collects its own data, keeps its own database, creates maybe a portal, web portal or a web app or a smartphone app, and keeps it in a fragmented, data duplicated and siloed effort. And this comes because this reason for that is the lack of interoperability, lack of reusability of thinking, most countries and most systems even struggle with vendor neutrality. They get locked into a vendor solution that doesn't even open up for others to use it, and so on. So it's very, very important that we allow reusability, interoperability, and vendor neutrality as much as through open standards and open source is brought in, so that many countries can set up their underlying identity and registry systems and credentialing system. Why do we already said, why do you need registries and identity credentialing? Because it empowers people to, high trust, low cost transactions, right? The worst situation today is that while the digitization is happening, end users have almost no way to verify that you have a car. Your car is in some RTO registrar database. They do register. Almost all countries register vehicles. So there is a registry of vehicles, but it is not a true registry. It's merely a database kept by the Road Transport Authority. No one can verify it. You can't walk into a bank and say, actually, I want a car. How do I prove? There is no way to prove. I have to literally drive my car physically to the bank officer and show, okay, this is my car, or show some paper certificate called, registration book or registration certificate, which you said, hey, you could have printed. I mean, Staples or printer. I mean, you could have as well printed anywhere else. So trust almost diminishes. And people on the top of the pyramid doesn't realize, because a lot of us have connections and access and authority in one way to get through this friction. But most people struggle with dealing with this friction. So it's very, very important. Whenever we create a register, we also have to create a credential for the individual. Every register, Aadhaar is a register of people. But Aadhaar also gave a credential in everyone's hand with a QR code, digitally signed QR code. Because for that individual, the register doesn't matter. It's about my credential matter. When we have a registry of vaccinated people in the country, that's a register government or health authorities maintaining. But all of us also received a credential that is printable, smartphone friendly, QR coded, so that I can now prove that I am vaccinated without the government in the middle of it, right? Or the registry in the middle of it. So the duality of that is that every register, unless register creates a verifiability out of that system by other layers, almost becomes a mere database. And the problem with that database is that next system will collect all of that data all over again. And the next system will ask for that data, collect that data all over again, and have to verify that data all over again, rather than porting that verifiability or attestation in that sense, right? And that is where we are today with a ton of data. This is why we see college admissions, parents who have been in college admissions in India, for example, for surely, it's quite a harassment, right? All the paperwork, transfer certificate, your undergrad degrees or degree certificate, your school leaving certificate, all original. And if this concept of original documents, and if you lose that original document, you are really in bad shape. But by digitizing that and creating verifiable credential out of that document, no more concept of original, which is why people who have Aadhaar realize this. There is nothing called original Aadhaar card. You can print as many number of times because it's digitally verified. It doesn't matter. There's no concept of original. We must go towards that. That allows paperless, low friction, high trust, ability for the next layer to provide me admissions, provide me lending options in the bank, provide me job opportunities. If I have an engineering degree or a skill degree, for example, I'm a mechanical skill degree and I want to get a job in a manufacturing plant, I must be able to actually carry a set of certificates that are in verifiable form, not original paperwork, which is almost completely useless, right? Today's world. And that's why it's fundamentally moved from, as I said, high trust, low cost model. We have to move from low trust, high cost to high trust, low cost model. And that necessitates removing silos through interoperability and standards, making sure that limited acts, people have only the top of the pyramid have access to lending and banking and financial inclusion and savings and job opportunity. We must create equity across the society for anyone to be able to get that access. For low verifiability, accountability to high verifiability, high trust interaction. So when I say, oh, by the way, I am a fruit seller, I have a high quality fruit, or I am a cloud kitchen, I sell. How do I even know that you are a cloud kitchen? How do I even know that you have a safe environment? All this is today is a low trust, pretty much for us, right? So it's important that we keep doing that. Continuity of services, it's important. Only way continuity of services can come is because of the portability of this credential. So my ability to take vaccine certificate and actually show it in a visa or a travel system, and the travel system's ability to instantly verify that without photocopies, human intervention, that allows portability of trust and efficiency of provisioning of services. And this, when you design these systems, it cannot be designed in monolithic solution blocks. It must be built as a reusable, which is like identity. Why did we build identity as an independent digital building block in this country? Purposeless identity in one sense, right? That's what we created. But it was used to open bank account. It was open to get healthcare claims, farmer subsidies, many solutions. So it is important that we build in a generalized underlying credential capability that can be embedded and reused and leveraged in many solutions and applications to create equitable opportunity across the society. And that's what actually that is why we believe electronic registries and verifiable credentials ought to be foundational in nature. And we must build digital public goods as an open source effort, which is what EkStep Foundation absolutely set out to do. Not only that, it allows any country in the world, India already using it, many other countries to be able to leverage this open source world and actually build their own digital public infrastructure, DPIs, that allows health credentialing, skill credentialing, academic credentialing, and build registries for high trust, low cost. Think Aadhaar at scale in functional way, right? That's what we are really trying to do. Now, it's important to understand, just to repeat, registries and credentials are two sides of the same coin. When a system looks at it, when a national health authority, for example, looks at it, they would say, I need registries of doctors. I need to know who are the doctors in this country. So I will maintain a registry of doctors. But if I maintain in an internal database, which is only useful to me, it's neither useful to doctors, it's nor useful to anybody else in the system, we create fragmented silos. Instead, if you build that registry, if that registry is available as a verifiable API, point number one, this is what Aadhaar KYC and Aadhaar authentication all did, right? Open API that allows instant verification. When a doctor says, I'm a nationally attested doctor, someone can instantly verify that claim, saying, yes, you are indeed, because it's already pre-attested and it's in the registry. And second, it is given back to the individual. It cannot be only kept in the database. It has to be given back as a verifiable credential, so that the individual or that SME, an institution, getting a trade license or a certificate of any form can carry that certificate with me in my wallet, digital wallet, and use that to avail the next set of services without having a hard dependency with the health authority having to come in the between, a bank wanting to lend to a small clinic. A small clinic might be attested by the health authority as a medical clinic. But if that clinic needs to invest in money in building some building and buying an X-ray machine, they need lending capital, access to capital. That will come from a bank. Bank doesn't have to know, health authority access APIs. I, as an individual, or I, as a clinic, should be able to make provable claims, verifiable claims. That can only happen when I get a copy of that certificate with verifiability embedded in it, like embedded QR code, for example. That's a way to verify, right? So QR code allows printability also, which is why I allow a lot of poor people not having smartphone to still carry a vaccination certificate today. Because verifiability is not diluted in the case of paper as well. So this design is very, very key, that allows portability, inclusion, and layered trust to be established. And many examples, registries, when you create doctor facility register, immediately you also get a doctor ID and credentials on the side. For the individual, for the doctor, it's about my credential and my certificate. For the system, it is about doctor database and doctor registries, right? So it's the two sides of the same coin. Education registry means school. Do we know? Is it even an approved school? Is it a CBSE or the board approved school? How do we know? How does the parent know this school has even approval? If such verifiability has to be built in, or a school wanting to invest in a playground, going to a bank for a loan, can they prove that they are a valid attested school in this country, and not through paperwork, in a low cost, high trust fashion, right? So skills registry, property registry, vehicle registry, identity registry, farm registry, all of them are one side will get, these are all functional registry, ought to be built, that allows who I am and what I have to be unbundled and created as a reusable layer for the country, so that I can transact, interact, get jobs, get loan, get next opportunity to prove, push my life forward, right? And that is what actually at the end of the day is fundamentally between registries. Registries allow onboarding of people and entities and things, attesting them and putting it in the registry and issuing a credential back to that individual or entity, so that that individual or entity can do the next transaction at a low cost, high trust fashion. Otherwise, everybody does everything all over again, just not, that simply means top of the pyramid will have everything and the bottom of the pyramid lives in a parallel universe, like a money lender and all that. That's not what we want to do, right? And that's why Sunbird RC is Sunbird is a set of open building blocks, sunbird.org, you can go there. And Sunbird RC has a microsite called sunbirdrc.dev, and you can go there. It's all, Sunbird itself is a set of digital building blocks, entirely open sourced, MIT licensed open source, of initiative by EkStep Foundation, and a large set of community members. I mean, the EkStep Foundation is only a facilitator of Sunbird community, is not the sole contributor. We are a contributor and a facilitator, but EkStep Sunbird has many community members as individuals and companies and not-for-profit organizations that is continuously improving the value of those building blocks to the entire world. And it's entirely MIT licensed, so no questions asked. It is also listed under the Digital Public Good Alliance, DPG registry. So this is already a global DPG attested by them as that. And Sunbird RC is one of the building blocks on Sunbird suite, if you will. And that allows create rapid creation of electronic registries and issuance of credentials. So Sunbird RC can be used by, let's say, an agriculture team or a private company. Let's say you are an aggregator and you want to onboard a set. Let's say you are a taxi aggregator and you want to onboard taxi drivers onto your platform. You will have a registry and you will need to issue a certificate back to them and so on to truly empower. And under that, both GDPR in Europe and both India's upcoming data protection bill it will be mandated to give the data back. Access to that data will be also the right of that individual or the institution. So everybody must build not a database, internal database, build a registry that allows APIs to be available by the ecosystem to re-verify. And you can charge, if you're a private company, of course you can charge and so on. Even Aadhaar has a utility charge, right? So sustainability needs to be maintained. If it's a digital public infrastructure, it will be typically a utility fee just for sustenance, like Aadhaar fees or UPS, small UPS switching fees. But if it is a private company, you might have your own API fees and so on. But it is important to understand RC allows you to rapidly build electronic registries, very, very rapidly, and embed verifiable credentials into your application. It is an API-based engine, by the way. It's an engine that allows you to create registries and issue credentials, primarily on the issuance side. And it allows basically you as a platform owner, if you are building a platform, whether it's a public platform or a private platform, you can build a single source of truth through registries, allow discovery of people, things, entities on that system, provide attestation and claim verification on top of that, and then also allow individuals or the people who are in that registry to make consented verification requests against that and export these credentials into a digital wallet. We have a reference digital wallet, and we'll talk more with Daniel as well later on the digital wallet. Sunbird RC is used in health for COVID. By the way, your COVID in India, at least COVID credentialing, and these 5 countries use Sunbird RC for their health credentialing, and 2 billion credentials issued. So Sunbird RC is no more beta. It's actually at scale used. So you should not even doubt that it works. It's working at scale already across the world. It's also used in one of the largest school learning management system, where students and teachers leverage certification. 100 million plus digitally verifiable credentials have been issued on that thing, all using Sunbird RC. Sunbird RC is an open source. But all of you could imagine as part of your project to build health registries, immunization registries, whether you might be working on land registries or vehicle, student registries, certification, simple certification, trade licenses or any other certification, academic certification, skill certification. So if you're providing skills to people, you can issue certificate. To issue certificate in a verifiable credential manner, and we use W3C verifiable credential specification as well. So you can actually use that so that it is interoperable with DigiLocker or any other credential wallet, and it also interoperable across system. That is the most important aspect of that. So I'll stop there. I hope I didn't take too much time. I was tracking that, maybe 25 minutes or so. So Rajesh, back to you.
Thanks, Pramod. It was a great outlook on where we can actually see the world of verifiable credentials and registries evolve. And specifically since over the last couple of years, we have actually seen how, due to the onset of COVID, how in order to simplify border crossing, international travel and so forth, credentials have actually played a critical role. There's been like a global consensus and a global collaborative effort in trying to outline some of these standards which would make some of these credentials universally recognizable and verifiable across the board. So it's great. It's wonderful to see this momentum behind verifiable credentials. And now that given the experience of COVID, a number of other sectors are also coming forward, and I see policymakers making interesting decisions around using this technology and smoothing some of their digitization efforts. With that, let me move on to the next segment. It's another interesting segment that we actually have lined up. And to begin, let me also introduce the second panel speaker for the session today, Daniel, as you can actually see him on screen. Daniel, if I were to quickly introduce him, Daniel is I mean, he's actually the co-founder and CEO of yes.com, which essentially has been like a pretty fascinating ecosystem of 1,000+ financial institutions, as well as probably also the driving force behind the global assured identity network, instrumental in streamlining some of the key decision making around the fintech world the last many years. Daniel, as some of us may know, is also one of, probably the leading advocate of the Open Wallet initiative that some of us have had the pleasure to be a part of, and also interact with Daniel on this very exciting initiative over the past few weeks. To kick it off, welcome Daniel to the session, and wonderful to actually have you participate, and would love to hear your insights around the Open Wallet initiative to begin with, as well as where do you actually see the synergies develop between the Open Wallet initiative as well as a lot of the work being done around verifiable credentials for the past couple of years.
Rajesh, thank you for the incredibly nice introduction. I am not sure if I'm going to live up to every nice thing you said. So the best thing would be to simply enjoy this and shut up. But I'm really happy to be here. It's a great pleasure because I've been a fan of the work of Pramod and Sanjay and many others here in India. I think what you're doing in the realm of digital ecosystems, and especially systems that are not owned by any one company, but that are basically shared public goods, is amazing, and it's really a role model for the entire world. What we're trying to do with the Open Wallet Foundation is relatively simple. I assume that everyone here is using browsers almost every day. And most of you will know that whatever browser you are using, you're taking advantage of a browser engine, sometimes referred to as a rendering engine. Now, the rendering engine or browser engine that is most widely used is something called Blink. If you're using the Google Chrome browser, or if you're using the Microsoft Edge browser, you are taking advantage of this open source software project called Blink. And Blink is making it easier for anyone who's interested to publish a browser because you have a shared common code base. But that shared common code base also has repercussions for interoperability. If many different vendors are using the same core software components, it is a lot easier to become interoperable. So we use the browser engine as an analogy, as a metaphor for what we're trying to do with Open Wallet. The name might be a little confusing because the Open Wallet Foundation is not trying to publish a wallet, but rather to publish shared open source code that allows anyone to create wallets more easily. And these wallets ideally should be secure, they should be interoperable, and they should be what we refer to as multi-purpose. And what we mean by that is a lot of people in the space, when they think about wallets, are thinking just about zero-knowledge proofs or just about maybe ISO MDL driver's licenses. We believe that in order for wallets to be really successful, they have to be as universal as your physical wallet. So they have to be a home for your driver's license, for your government IDs, but also for car keys and room keys, and of course for COVID passes and so many other things. Rajesh, I can go on forever, so you have to stop me whenever my time's up.
Vic, it's quite exciting to hear you actually speak about this initiative, because we've, just for many members of the audience to know, so earlier this month, the Linux Foundation Europe did actually formally announce the Open Wallet initiative, and Daniel actually led an Open Wallet Foundation roundtable. It's currently available on YouTube. I would probably encourage everybody to take a listen. Pramod is also available on the same roundtable as a speaker. So it was exciting to actually see a lot of common voices espouse some of the key principles that you did lay out, Daniel, and given the way how the decentralized identity and the verifiable credential space has actually emerged in the last couple of years, I think this would be like a critical step forward. As you rightly pointed out, if we can essentially put out, I mean, if you're able to achieve a future where plurality of digital wallets is possible, with interoperability and security being available, I mean, present as core foundational principles of how many of these digital wallets would operate, that would be a big step forward and would simplify how transactions are done for end consumers as well as institutions. So it would be a space for many of us to actually watch out for, and I would seriously encourage everybody in the audience and otherwise to actually take a close look at where the Open Wallet initiative and subsequently where the Open Wallet Foundation would lead its efforts around. With that, I probably pose my second question to Pramod. Given the ambition and the nature of how the Open Wallet engine is, at least as of now, designed to operate, I know it's still probably early days for the technical roadmap of the Open Wallet engine to be absolutely well defined yet. It's still work in progress, but given the ambition that Daniel has laid out and the principles that we are looking after, how do you actually see the synergies develop between the work that is being undertaken by many issuers as well as many foundations like DIF, OpenID, and so forth around digital credentials and the work that the Open Wallet ecosystem of initiative would actually lead towards? So I believe there would be a synergy and coming together of both worlds. So would love to hear a perspective on that.
Yeah. I think first of all, I was instantly super excited when Daniel said, he's a magician. He actually pulls a lot of people and aligns a lot of people. So he had reached out to many of us as well, saying, does it make sense, if you put together something like that? And it instantly made sense to me because the few things, right? One, if you want massive increase in the trust and go towards, sort of natively digital, paperless interactions and transactions. Why? It's to fundamentally reduce the costs and reduce the friction in the system. And reduction of that cost and increasing the trust is fundamental to access. Otherwise, people can't get access to bank accounts. They can't get access to investment. So there's a huge issue in this world. So we were very, very clear in our mind that registries and credentials dramatically increase, and we have seen that with Aadhaar, we have seen that with many other layers playing out, increases trends and start getting access to services. But what was missing is there are two layers that were missing there. One, to issue, maintain a registry and issue credentials, you need to know technology, you need to know scalability, good design, how do I create evolvable schema, all that thing. So we said, if every system, whether it's agriculture system, hospital systems, and driver's license, and RTO, and education systems, and skilling systems, and many systems in the world have to actually seamlessly start issuing credentials, it's worth creating a digital public good that allows them to rapidly say, I can now start issuing credentials. I am maintaining a verifiable registry, no more a database in my internal silo, right? We must be able to do so. We took that effort to build Sunbird RC. Sunbird RC was that effort. So it takes care of registry maintenance and issuance of credentials. The second layer is interoperability also need open specifications. That means if I issue an academic credential from a university, the job employer who is scanning that system needs to now accept in a seamless fashion. So you need this data structure interoperability or the data interoperability, which is why in the case of COVID, WHO stepped in one sense and said, we will create a data structure that is portable for how do you describe COVID vaccination, right? This is a standardization effort. And all of us are now sort of creating our own national standard. This is what, at least in India, we are doing. We are working with a set of national standards for skill domain, education domain, health domain, like immunization and so on. But we are also reaching out to, for example, in the case of health, when it comes to, we have reached out to WHO to say, please participate so that we create an international standard. But I have not seen a standards body like ISO or anybody stepping up there yet. But W3C is there. We could, work with that team, MIT team, very closely. But standards are important for export and import of these credentials into various systems, and hence portability, right? We need that thing to come. And the third layer, which was completely missing, is the wallet. And Apple went aggressively last year, announced wallet, and they're doing custom integration in the US, for example, with RTO and so on. Google followed up saying that we also have wallet.google.com, and nothing wrong, right about these approaches. It's like having Microsoft Internet Explorer and so on, while still having Firefox or Mozilla, right? So it's no big deal. So, but I think a lot of us believed that credential wallet cannot be a data control game, and we can't go back to that, and hence every individual must have a choice. Now, if I choose to use Apple, nothing wrong, it's fine. Now, if I choose to use Google, we all use those products, nothing wrong, but we must have a choice, and the choice comes from other vendors in the system, like when Samsung wants to create a phone. These phone vendors, can they actually give you a easy to use, internationally compliant, interoperable, secure wallet? But if each of them start building from scratch, then it's a cost. So I think when Daniel said we are going to create an engine, like a Gecko engine in the case of Mozilla rendering, if I can create a internationally compliant, secure engine, suddenly the choice vector opens up for individuals, and that was exciting for me. So I think so this is a three-layer: issuance, credential wallet. So one is systemic registries and issuance side, which is what Sunbird RC takes care. Wallet with OWF, we are going to make a huge, opening up of the wallet choices the consumer has, which is very, very good, but still retaining security, interoperability, and so on. And the third element is to work, these two to work, we need standards. So we continue to, all of us as evangelists in the system, will continue to look for a good place where academic credentials, health credentials, and job, proof of work and proof of earning, all that thing can be now credentialized. Property in the case of land, we are working with the Agriculture Ministry on that. But for individuals, wallet becomes a place to store. For systems, Sunbird RC can be used to issue and maintain that. That's how the three-way, the triangle will fill in. And if this triangle comes through, absolute magic is guaranteed. And we can see it happening. And we can see, and we are almost there. I think so. I think we'll pull it off. If we are collectively, if you don't do our own fragmentation, hopefully we'll come together to pull it off.
Rajesh, if I may add something, because you mentioned a step forward, and I think there is this huge opportunity for a step forward. There is also a risk for a step backwards. So today I can come to India, and I can use my Swiss driver's license, or since I'm an Austrian citizen, my Austrian passport to clear immigration, get to New Delhi, and then rent a car. I think there is a danger that in the digital world, we are going to lose this capability. And this is definitely something that we must avoid. The world of globalization is coming under attack from so many sides, whether it's wars, whether it's industrial wars. I think all of us in the digital realm have a responsibility to try our very best to bring people together, to bridge people. And as Pramod said, I think a lot of us don't want this to be a two-horse race. I think a lot of us are interested in a plurality of wallets. And this is why we are really keen to work with as many nonprofits as well as large corporations. And the video that you posted, you'll see that we had a representative from Microsoft, which is $1 trillion company. We had a couple of billion-dollar companies, and we had representatives from nonprofit organizations and digital public good initiatives. And I believe that this combination of people, the combination of individuals who share that desire for interoperable multi-party plurality, this is really what is going to make or break this initiative. And this is why, if I may shamelessly plug the Open Wallet Foundation, anyone who's interested, please go to openwallet.foundation. You'll find a form there. You can put in your name and your email address, and we will be glad to add you to the mailing list, because I think we're off to a really amazing start. But this initiative is only as good as the people contributing to the initiative. And that's why we really hope that we're going to continue to make progress to get more and more organizations, but especially at the end of the day, people excited in the topic.
I couldn't agree any more. I mean, yeah, you put it out quite well, and that probably would have been one of my questions as a neutral observer. Given that the announcement was made earlier this month, I wanted to get a sense of what kind of feedback have you been getting from the industry, and are organizations coming forward and willing to participate and collaborate in this effort. So whatever you just said is just, wonderful to hear, and we hopefully will see a lot of traction on this front as we look to advance the cause of decentralization and digital wallets, which are truly improbable around the world. With that, I just wanted to have a quick segue into another question on a point that Pramod did raise in terms of efforts that the VC world had actually seen from W3C and a few other organizations around standard definitions. So would there be a similar effort from, say, different standard development organizations on the open wallet front, or would the focus just largely remain on building the open wallet engine, and the collaboration may happen with a standard organization like W3C? So how do you see that working out going ahead?
Was that a question to Pramod or to me?
No, sorry, that was a question to both of you. I'll probably start with you, Daniel.
So I think it's very critical that the Open Wallet Foundation does not become a standardization organization itself. We don't want people to think of OWF as a competitor to organizations like W3C or the Decentralized Identity Foundation or the Open ID Foundation. But of course, the Open Wallet Foundation, I think, provides an opportunity to create wallets that really adhere to those standards, because standards are absolutely essential, of course, for interoperability. So, when you think again about the browser engines, which are just an analogy, and as every analogy, they're not perfect, but I think they're useful in this case because the browser engines are not creating standards, but the support of browser engines of these standards is really critical for interoperability. So we see them as partners, and we see an opportunity to create partnerships not just within one country, but really on a truly global basis. And we have workshops that we've had, with companies like Microsoft and people from MOSIP, for instance. And it is so exciting to see how we can learn from each other for these standards and bring architects of very large companies in countries who are thinking about zero knowledge proofs together with countries where people say, yeah, but what are we going to do if all we have is a piece of paper with a QR code, or if 7 members of a family share one feature phone? And I think that is really at the very heart of what we need to accomplish in order to really pull this off.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, so, I think just quickly as well on the standard side, I don't see yet, and OWF is not a standards body. EkStep Foundation, for example, is a foundation focusing on education and skilling. So we all have a purpose of our existence, and that's not standards creation per se, but facilitating, participating in standards creation. So we are actively trying to facilitate standards creation, but where does it get hosted, who will maintain and sustain the standards effort is fully not known, frankly speaking. But without that, we'll continue to have the custom schemas and custom data structures and so on, which will make interoperability and portability harder. So hopefully we'll find a way through. I don't have an answer yet, and we don't see an answer yet, but I'm pretty sure the international global efforts, the fact that this has become a topic of its own itself is a good sign. And so I'm very sure there will be standards body emerging, and then we'll align ourselves there.
Absolutely. So to Daniel, if I could actually put my hat, my hat, a hat which would probably allow me to have a peek into the future. How soon could we actually expect this engine to be out public forum so that people could actually start using it and building solutions around it? Do you have a roadmap thought of yet? What are your early estimations of where this effort would lead into?
So, if this was a baby, it wouldn't even be born. We basically started this in June of this year at Money 2020 in Amsterdam. And we're going to hopefully give birth to our baby together in November at the Linux Foundation Member Summit in Lake Tahoe. And one of the critical things to get right is to understand exactly how the development model is going to work. How many engineers will the foundation have? How many engineers will other organizations be able to lend to this? And very critically, what are the code bases that we start with? I think we all know that we have no time to lose. Pramod mentioned the Apple Wallet and the Google Wallet. There are a few very large companies out there, and they have a head start. And if we want the plurality of wallets, we need to be there quickly. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an architect. So it's easy for me to say the sooner, the better. But I very much hope that we have something to offer before the end of next year.
Wonderful. And I'm sure I can actually probably encapsulate the excitement of everybody available on this call. So we all would be looking forward to that development next year. In the paucity of time, I'll probably just close this segment with one final question to Pramod. And that question is more so from the perspective of policy. So the way I probably see it in terms of verifiable credentials as a digital intervention, making its way through COVID documents and now possibly other forms of documents. What is it that, say, policymakers and governments would have to bear in mind so that this momentum, essentially, that COVID credentials has actually created isn't really lost, and we could actually sustain this and explore newer avenues of introducing this tech and making life simpler for people?
Yeah, I think so. Many things have aligned, frankly speaking, in the last few years. QR code, everybody knows. So, whether it's printed or a smartphone, it's becoming almost commonplace. People have access to either paper form, feature phone, smartphone, paper-based form. So it's no more an inclusion problem. COVID has also put us the need for issuing such certificates, which is actually carried across the border and so on, right? So this is one of those things where the society is ready, policymakers seem to be ready. So it's a question of now the various foundation efforts, advocating with the government. And with India, we have done that. India, MeitY, for example, has published their India 2.0 architecture, which has a chapter on electronic registries and credentials, whole chapter by itself, right? Really pushing, saying that MeitY is our Ministry of IT. Ministry of IT, as a nationally said, every state, this system, whether it's agriculture, health, start thinking registries, start creating credentials and so on. So there's a policy push that's coming from the top saying that time has come to take the paperless and high trust, low cost model to the next layer into various domains. No more in horizontal domains like identity. Let's go to agriculture, let's go to health and so on. So they have done that part, and other countries can also, all of us can influence policy guys to say, but I think they are ready for it. The next, after the policy comes the question, do I have to build all these things from scratch or are they digital public goods? So I think OWF effort, EkStep effort, all this can be now brought together into a country to rapidly create then next level of trust. I think we are ready for it. One question I'll also answer, I think Surabhi was asking in the chat, where does funding come from for a country? Governance come from for a DPI? So we have already initiated some conversation with funders, large funders, like World Bank or Co-Develop, who are interested in creating large-scale digital public infrastructure, DPIs in various countries, to say, please fund such initiative. Open source efforts exist and we will rally behind it. And let's create policy, fund, access to capital, and make sure that this gets ready so that countries can now start seeing dramatic shift in access to services and products and opportunities through a high trust model. So I think we probably are ready. I think we would see a non-linear change in the next 2-3 years. It won't be any more slow. You would suddenly see a lot more certificates becoming verifiable at one shot. I think that's what I expect.
Absolutely. I can safely say that pretty much a lot of us on the call actually share this optimism. So it would be wonderful to actually watch this space and actually contribute to these efforts, whether it's on the registry verifiable credential front and as well as the new work that Daniel and team are putting forth with Open Wallet. So this should be an exciting future to behold, and it would be exciting to actually see the tech ecosystem along with policymakers and the market participants all coming together to actually help us actually finally break down the silos of interoperability that historically many of our sectors have been saddled with. So it was wonderful having both of you on this session. I was personally very excited to actually have this conversation going between both of you. So many thanks for participating in this segment. And Daniel, I know it's been extremely early for you in the day, so you've been kind enough to join us and enrich this conversation with your participation. So with that, I'll probably move on to the final segment. It will be the last closing section. I apologize to everyone. It's just that we've slightly overshot time, so we probably wouldn't have enough time to actually take up any audience Q&A. But rest assured, we will be reverting back to you for any unanswered questions directly to you. So we have all the questions tabulated. We will be reverting back to you, and we'll anyways be sharing the summary of this session along with all the questions and the responses. So with that, on to the final section. What I would like to do next is actually allow, given that Pramod has actually spoken about Sunbird RC as a digital public good, there is a collection of open source resources that everybody can leverage and tap into. We have a fairly vibrant community on Discord. I would encourage every single one of you to participate, join this community. There's a lot of co-creation, co-building and co-ideation effort that is actually happening on this forum. So it would be great to actually join our collective minds together and build some interesting, cool solutions using this tech. We also have a lot of reference material and documentation available, along with the discussion board where some of these ideas and projects are explored at length. So like I said, so if you'd like any further information, please do write to us at info@sunbird.org. Feel free to join our community channels, skim through the resources that we have on our website. The links are available to you, and be pretty exciting to actually have all of you contribute in this journey along with us. What we also have as part of the series, as we said at the beginning, so this session is just the first of a series that we'll be doing around Sunbird RC. We'll be following it up with two platform deep dive sessions. The first one around the potential use case possibilities as well as market possibilities using this open source stack, as well as architectural and technical component deep dive into the platform in general. So both of these sessions would probably expect to be done in October. We'll also be following it up with two other sessions with a wider community and more focused on the policy and adoption aspects of the technology in general, verifiable credentials and registries. So this would be hosted as a roundtable conversation. We'll have another exciting panel of guests participating on these forums, and it would be great to actually take a view on what different actors, from policymakers to market participants to the tech ecosystem, actually see around this direction that VCs and registries are generally taking around the board. So do watch out for announcements through the Sunbird social media handles. We will have dates and plans shared with everybody through these handles, and would be wonderful to actually have you participate in these sessions going forward. With that, we come to a close for the session today. A big thank you to, first of all, Pramod and Daniel to making us available for this session and sharing your insights around this exciting piece of technology and segment in general. We would, as both of you did share, it would be quite interesting to actually see how both of these spaces actually evolve, and where we see the digitization efforts leverage some of these open source digital public goods along the way, and collectively try and make the transaction ecosystem simpler and ultimately beneficial for the end actors, like the individuals in general. And along with that, love to thank each and every one of you for participating in the session today. I know it's pretty late in the day, so in India, so as well as in a few other geographies, but all of you who had participated in the session today, many thanks to all of you. We will be sharing the recording of the session along with all of the other resources as part of the ongoing communication with the registered participants going forward. So with that, we come to a close, and until the next time, goodbye and good evening. Thank you.